This is my theory.
Yes.
Founder mode is just a facelift, a rebrand for micromanagement.
A glow up.
Maybe not. Kyle's going to prove me wrong, prove me right. I don't know, because I don't know what it means. So we're going to find out.
Yes, we're going to talk about the merits possibly of micromanaging. So if you've ever had a micromanager, we're going to help you navigate around that. And I'm going to present an argument of why I actually think you want a micromanager. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kaila.
And it's time to go founder mode on per my last email.
Okay, so can you explain to me what founder mode even is?
Yes, I'll explain what founder mode is. We'll set the scene. Very briefly, 60 seconds. If you don't care about founder mode, it's going to be over so fast. So Brian Chesky, founder of Airbnb, was at a Y Combinator event. Y Combinator is this startup accelerator founded by Paul Graham. And he had an off-the-record conversation with other founders, and he basically said, every piece of advice I heard about how to scale a company was wrong. You shouldn't delegate, and in fact, you need to stay in founder mode, which is you get into the details. So he gives this talk. Then Paul Graham, basically, from an event that was off the record, goes, let me just write an article about it and put it out in the world. Mm-hmm. Hopefully he asked Brian about this. Yeah. So Paul Graham, who, again, started Y Combinator, and he has a bunch of articles about startups, and they're very popular, wrote this piece called Founder Mode, where he outlines this idea that most of Silicon Valley has been operating in this idea where once you start scaling your company, you're supposed to hire other executives that know more about product or, revenue or marketing than you do, and you kind of get out of their way and you delegate them tasks, and that's how you scale a company. And what Brian was presenting was this alternative view where he saw that actually hurt Airbnb. And once he got more involved in the details, quote unquote, more micromanagey, he actually saw much better results. And so it was kind of this like permission for founders to stay very engaged in everything in their business. And then it, kind of blew up. Like everyone started talking about it in the startup community. It bled into the mainstream. Yeah. Brian Chesky's been on a lot of podcasts explaining it. And here we are where some really care about it and some, judging by Kayla's face, don't care at all.
It's just an excuse for founders to feel like they still have relevancy in their company that's growing beyond them.
Okay, I definitely disagree. And I do think it's worth, go read the piece. It's actually pretty short. Mm-hmm. And then Brian Chesky's been on a ton of podcasts talking about it. If you're into it, go listen. Because I think the way he describes it is essentially that once a company starts to scale, you kind of delegate yourself out of the company. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the advice you hear is make yourself useless. Give the reins over to other people that know better than you, and then you just manage them and everything works out. And I maybe it is a rebrand of micromanagement, but I think the way he describes it is a partnership where it's he still cares. He is still the founder. He wants to be in the details, and he wants to partner with other smart people to come up with the best idea. And he's found that to be much more successful than when he just fully removes, trusts the other people, kind of cedes authority to the people he's hired instead of caring a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I know that for me, the reason why I don't care about founder mode is because personally, I'm not a founder.
Yes.
Right? And so it feels like it doesn't really apply to me, but I think I have seen, probably not at Morning Brew specifically, but with friends, companies, the founder clinging to, I've hired really good people and now I'm going to make it extra hard for them to do their jobs because I still want to be involved, has created this weird dynamic where somebody is really, really smart. And let's say the CMO of a company. Yeah. They're really good at their job, but they're still trying to appease the founder that doesn't know that much about marketing. Mm-hmm. So it's if you're hiring these people that are really good at their jobs, a part of that is letting go and letting them do their job, which I actually think is also a good example of how to get over micromanagement. Yeah. Is to trust, but I think maybe that just makes the hiring process that much more important. Yeah. I think founder mode is makes it harder for people to do their jobs, but I also think that what he's talking about is very real. Yeah. So, okay. So one, I think your point about it just doesn't feel relevant to you because you're not a founder. I'm not a founder. Yeah. So it's I don't want to read about founder mode. Makes total sense. Let's talk about micromanagement because that is what I think the heart of this piece is getting to. And that's something that's relevant for everyone, which is we've all been in a situation where we've had a boss that's been way
too in the weeds with you and like kind of gets in your way, and you're actually less productive because they're more involved.
Literally, yeah.
But I would say we've also had bosses on the other side that like don't care at all. And like it's actually hard to like get them to even review your work or provide guidance. It feels like they're very disconnected from the business unit. And I think that's also bad too. And I think that's what he's talking about. It's like, okay, I scale myself out of a company, or if you're running a team and you delegate everything away, like what else do you do? What's your point there? Like, shouldn't you still be setting a standard for excellence and caring about the details? And so I think it's about trying to find that sweet spot, which is partnership.
But I think setting a standard for excellence and caring about the details is not micromanagement.
Okay, so
That's management.
what would you define as micromanagement? And like, is there ever a case where you think it is appropriate to be a micromanager?
Okay, so micromanagement, when I think of it, is an inability to allow your direct report to do the job that is expected of them. So whether that's like constantly hammering them for updates, or maybe like seeing and rewriting or redoing their work, it's like you're constantly on. A manager's role is to oversee, yes, to make sure the product is good quality, yes, but then also to teach, to encourage, to challenge your direct report. And I think micromanagement is almost like a weed on a flower or on a garden or something. It like prevents somebody taking risks because someone's always hovering, always checking all of your work, always telling you what to do. That's where I think micromanagement is a problem.
Yeah.
I do think there are some instances in which it is okay and good to be a micromanager, but I think it's 1% of all of the possible situations. And it's time bound. It's when you have a new role, you're starting at a new company, you're learning something completely new.
Yep, you're just promoted.
New skill. You're taking on a new thing and you've never done it before and your boss has. That's when they're going to be on it, like checking everything, helping you with everything, checking in a lot, over communicating. New boss. Or if you are messing up, if you have a lot of errors, or maybe you're on a PIP or a performance improvement plan, like when you've given enough reason that you need to be hovered over, those things, and it's like, this is going to be 2 months, this is going to be 6 weeks, this is going to be 3 months. Like, I love that because it's time bound, you know there's an end, and then you need to back up.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, okay, so I think there's like 2 reasons why people would micromanage, a manager would micromanage. One is you don't trust your direct reports, which is what I think you're alluding to here. It's like, I don't actually think they can do the job, so I have to like go in, watch their work, do duplicative work in some cases. And like, yeah, I think, you know, that's a bad situation, but the outcome of that shouldn't be I'll just keep micromanaging them. It's like, if they're not right for the role, it's time to help them find a better fit. The other micromanagement I think that actually is good is you're micromanaging because you care deeply about the end product or the end results.
I hate this take.
Well, okay, let me give you an example. One from my personal life and then one a shared experience we have together.
Oh, great.
You might eat, might eat that boot.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I bet you're wishing you took that one.
I'm stressed out.
Kayla's like, did I say how I didn't mean to boo, actually?
I unboo.
Okay, from my own life. So I was working with Chuck in my previous role.
Yeah.
And we would do a podcast. We would record an episode. And there was many cases where he was like, I feel like we got a lot of good stuff in that hour, but like it's not a whole hour podcast. We got to get it down to like the best 25 minutes. And I have like taste. I know what my podcast wants to feel like. I know what innovation really means. I've seen it in a 16-year career. I want to edit this podcast with you. We literally went back to his condo and we went minute by minute, and I was the audio engineer. This is what I was supposed to be doing. But he was like, this one's like, I think it's harder, and I want to partner with you to find the best thing possible. And I actually loved that. I felt like he was really passionate about the end product, and I don't want to work with people that don't care. They're like, yeah, this one is tough, but like you'll figure it out, and you know, if you don't, it's fine. Like, I want someone that cares. And by being with him, I got to learn like even more about what he loves, the feeling, his insights. So I always view that as like, oh, they view me as an equal.
Yeah.
They want to partner with me. That's great.
Before you go to the next one, I have a very important note. I don't view that as micromanaging.
Yes.
I view that as an instance. So when we were in Morning Brew Learning, we talked about the Delegation Ladder. And so you start at a brand new skill that you've never practiced before. The way you do it is manager does, direct report watches.
Yeah.
And then the next rung on that ladder is we do. And then after that, it's direct report does, manager watches, and then it's direct report does.
Yeah.
So I feel like you were just on the we do part of that ladder. I don't think it was like every single episode he was making you do it with him.
Yeah, but this is my issue with and maybe this is just like we need to like break apart micromanagement and call it by different words for different reasons. Because I also hear people being like, you know, my manager like checks in with me all the time and like really cares, like such a micromanager.
No, I
and it's
literally
like,
wrote this down. That's a manager doing their job.
yeah, exactly. And I think we've like, again, it's like we've used this word to mean everything. And I do think some managers now are like afraid. They're like, I don't want to be, everyone says, well, I don't want to be a micromanager. Like it's this like thing we have to like challenge around or like caveat, hey, we're not a micromanager. But I do think sometimes then you're a little hesitant to like get in the weeds with your team.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Like I want a leader that cares about everything and like the outcome, the end product is they're putting their name on it. So yeah, I'm going to be with you in the weeds, in the trenches, partnering with you. It means I trust you. It means I view you as an equal, but I'm not just going to delegate responsibility and not care.
Right.
I care too much to not be in the weeds with you.
But that's a delegation process.
Sure,
That's
maybe,
not micromanagement in my mind.
But I don't think ever, depending on the team size, like you're ever fully out of it. And I think some people like want complete freedom, or they view like a manager caring about the outcome of their work as a sign of micromanagement, which I think is just a sign of like you really care. Now, our shared example. Okay, so when we joined Morning Brew, we had a team of 3, and we started the business unit, Morning Brew Learning. We were building these 1-to-8 week courses. And eventually that team became, I don't know, 15 people, 13 people, something like that. And, you know, we had people that were like in marketing, doing marketing. Do you have a background in marketing?
No.
I didn't think so. Did you care deeply about the messaging that went out in marketing emails?
Of course.
Because it was your baby.
Yeah.
It was, you were the founder. This is what founder mode is. It's like, I started this thing. I care deeply about this whole business, this whole product. And so, yeah, I do want to see everything. Not that I don't trust you, not that you're bad at your job. It's like, we're just in this together. And like, I have all of the context of what this thing was and how it is. And I probably have insights on messaging that you don't have and you're never going to have because you started a little later. You don't have the full context. And I want to be in there. And that's how I felt too. Like, yeah, I wanted to see and touch everything. And like, you know, maybe you like sometimes overextend and it rubs people the wrong way, but I just don't think you can grow something to a large company or to something that scales if you don't really care. And you almost care so much that you do overextend.
I still disagree. I keep my boo. Keep it in the record. Yeah, because we weren't their managers. That's not micromanaging.
That's even worse.
Also, I will say, so we were all, this was a very specific situation where all of us had impact on the marketing messaging, but it's like us caring what the marketing is doesn't mean that we're micromanaging. It means we're asking to see the visuals, we're asking to like help with the copy. That just to me is not micromanaging. That to me is caring about the product.
Okay. A counterpoint, how many times have you heard someone say, well, my boss wants to read the copy that
That's not micromanaging.
It means they don't trust me. They're micromanaging. Like, why did you hire me if you don't think I can write the copy? This is a common critique that people say.
I think so. Then I think the issue that we're facing is we're arguing against about 2 completely different definitions.
Yeah.
Because to me, micromanaging is not, I'm going to read your copy. It's, you have to show me every draft that you create and not just the final that I'm going to give edits on. It's, I don't trust you to do this copy, so I'm going to do it, and then you're going to just copy and paste it into the ad.
Okay, so like maybe, tell me if I'm hearing this correctly. Yeah. Maybe like the differences is like micromanaging is not trusting that they even like will do the steps necessary to produce the thing you would like look at and partner with on. And that's really annoying where they're like, did you do the draft?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, did you log into your computer today? Are you on Slack? It's like,
literally.
Okay, I'm like a competent person. I can do the steps. And what I'm talking about is like, it's not micromanaging to care about what people 100%. On your team are producing and want to partner with them
100%.
to make that happen in the best way possible.
And I think that that's exactly great. I think you should do that.
Yeah.
What I think micromanagement is three things. First of all, it's a lack of trust. And then there's two versions of that, proven and unproven. If it's a proven lack of trust, I cannot trust you because you have messed up.
Because you're just not good at this job.
Then you need to like put that person on a PIP, performance improvement plan, or you need to get them out because as a manager, like you should trust your employee or your direct report.
Correct.
Then there's an unfounded lack of trust. You have never proven to me that you can't do your job, but I still don't trust you. That's a me problem. And the third bucket is I have an inability to level up to the tasks that I need to do as a manager.
Yeah.
So there's this thing called the Peter principle. I think it's called that, whatever. That's like you rise to the level of your incompetence.
Yeah. It's why we have a podcast. This is the end for us.
We're never going above this.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if you're good at your job, you get promoted. And if you're good at that job, you get promoted. And if you're not good at that job, they're probably not going to demote you.
Yeah, so you just stay there. Yeah.
But to me, micromanagement is an indication that you're maybe reaching your maximum level as an employee and that you feel incapable of doing the responsibilities and the tasks that are deemed for you.
Yeah.
So you choose to do the tasks a level below
Yeah.
you that you know you excel at and that you know you're good at.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that there's somebody already doing those tasks.
Yep. Really good point. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, like, for me, for example, if I was a micromanager with Charlotte at the very beginning because I said
it's onboarding.
The new role, it's onboarding.
It's training.
It's onboarding.
Yeah.
And then she's a better writer than I am, like 100%. And that was weird. That was hard for me to be like, oh my God, like I'm reading this stuff. Like I could have never come up with this.
Because you were reading my writing before and you were like, dude
like,
sucks.
This guy sucks. I'm definitely doing the right thing here. No, obviously not. But like with Charlotte, I was like, she is so good at editing. She's so good at writing. And it was like really hard for me to be like, I used to be the best at this team.
Yeah.
And now I'm not. And like, if I didn't think about that critically and like get over it, I could have seen myself becoming a micromanager because I'm like, no, I want to do this because this is something that I need to be good at.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's just micromanagement is more a failing of the manager than a failing of the direct report in most cases. And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
It's a really good point. Like I love this framing. Like there comes a point where you've hired someone that's very talented.
Yeah.
They might be better than you at certain things. And so how you like work with them has to change. And there's like two paths. Path one is like, I don't want to give that up. So I'm just going to micromanage them. I'm going to rewrite everything. I'm going to like fight them almost just so I feel like I'm still doing something. The other path is like, okay, how do I figure out how to best partner with this great writer? I'm going to provide support on like how we think about the topic selection, or, you know, I'm going to encourage them to lean into their strengths, content strategy. And you're still figuring out how to partner. Still means you have eyes on the final product. It doesn't mean you're like, they're a great writer, so I'm going to work remotely from Spain for 4 weeks and not care. Like you're still locked in. It's just you're finding the best partnership. And I think that actually is what founder mode comes down to, is figuring out that partnership. I want to come back to this idea of like a manager kind of like feeling like they need to find the next rung for them instead of micromanaging. So I think we have a friend that went through maybe a similar situation that we both have talked to about, where it feels like their manager like doesn't have something that they can do above them. And so now it's like the manager literally is just like doing duplicative work. They'll write something, the manager will be like, nope, bad. I'll just write the whole thing. And it's like, why are we both doing?
Right. And why are you asking me to do this?
Then like you just go do it because it seems like you have all the time in the world. Like, so if you're in that position, you're the person being micromanaged, how would you help someone get out of that situation or have a conversation with a manager about how to, remove that obstacle?
You really teed me right up because I've got it written down, my 3 tactics for what to do when you have a micromanager. First is identify the micromanagery behaviors.
Okay.
So is it checking and redoing all the work? Because that would imply that maybe it's that last thing that we talked about, the inability to level up or the lack of tasks above the person. Are they asking for updates constantly? Maybe that means that you're not communicating heavily enough for them. Maybe you need to shift how you communicate. Are they not trusting you? Like, is it one of those two things? Is it proven or unproven? Like, so once you identify what the exact behaviors are, then you can kind of figure out what path you should do next. Next, you have to communicate.
Yeah.
It sucks. You shouldn't have to talk to your micromanager. to be like, hey, can you like trust me a little bit? Like, what can I do? But I actually think that having a conversation is a really important thing that you can do to at least say it, like name it and be like, I feel like I'm being micromanaged. Maybe don't say that, but like,
I think it's fine.
it's fine. I feel like, maybe you're not trusting me or you're doing a lot of my work. Like, what can I do to make you feel like confident in me?
Well, could I actually
add to that.
I think a very powerful question you should ask is, it's like assuming best intent.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, I've noticed that these emails that are going out, I'm writing, and then basically you're rewriting the entire thing because you don't think what I wrote is good. And like, why is that?
Yeah.
And just put like, assume best intent. Maybe they're like, oh yeah, like I think you're doing X, Y, or Z wrong, and like you need to start doing that. Like it's almost encouraging them to give you some feedback, so you can eventually help them to not have to micromanage. So I think just assuming best intent and asking like, why is this happening? They might have a decent reason, which is like, yeah, you're not good at that, and I was like afraid to tell you.
Yeah.
And now we can have an open dialogue about that.
Right. Or this is a task that I've realized I'm not willing to give up yet.
Exactly.
It's so important that the clients get this messaging right. And so I feel like I'm doing a lot of double work. Actually, maybe this is something I take on.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh, perfect. You take that. Now I can better allocate my time to something you think my strengths really lean into. So,
and we could do that delegation ladder. We can, instead of, it was supposed to be, I do, you watch, but now it seems like you're wanting to do more of it. Maybe we go back to a we do situation. And then finally, especially if the communication part goes awry, paper trail. And I'm not saying paper trail like
bring a camera into the office,
No, like,
photograph everything.
But I'm saying like I think sometimes micromanagement happens because you don't really realize as a manager that you're doing it. And so if you've named it and it feels like it's not going right, like making sure that these conversations that you're having are in writing so that you can come to them and say, hey, this is the third time this week that you've rewritten a note of mine. I'd love to discuss that after we've even had this conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's helpful to have ammo.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And I would add too, I think a reason sometimes people micromanage is that they don't have more tasks that their boss is letting them do. Like, the thing where it's like someone yells at someone yells at someone. It's like you're getting yelled at because like 5 people yelled at someone ago. If you haven't seen that graphic, you have no idea what I just said. So apologies. But basically, it's like the domino effect.
Yeah.
If your boss if they're not doing the delegation ladder with their boss and they don't have more tasks to take on, if they just give up their task, it's very easy to be like, I'm not doing anything at this company. And that's a really scary feeling to have because that is like, okay, then are they going to fire me? Like, I'm irrelevant. And so, again, I would just like interrogate the why a little more because it might just be that your manager is in a really difficult position as well. And having a dialogue about like what tasks they can do or like even talking about the state of the team and like, okay, what other tasks can we advocate to your boss that we take on to give you a broader scope, I think can be really helpful. Yeah. I don't think anyone wakes up as a manager every day and is like, I can't wait to make my team miserable.
Yeah.
I am going to micromanage them so hard that they have to talk to their friends at a bar on Friday night about how terrible this is going. Like, no one wants to do that.
Yeah.
So it just, come in with an open mind and interrogate the why. I want to make this meta for 1 second because your boss and our founder of Morning Brew tweeted something about founder mode. I want to throw this up on the screen. Okay. And I'll read the first 3 lines of this tweet. So this is from Austin, CEO and co-founder of Morning Brew. And he was talking about this article, Founder Mode by Paul Graham. He said, the best writing takes an idea that a community feels deeply but can't quite articulate and finds the perfect words to define it. Founder Mode did that for me. The biggest mistake I made in scaling Morning Brew was over delegating. And then he goes on to talk about, he hired execs. They were very smart. But when there was a disagreement, he often felt like he was too passive. He kind of critiques himself. It was a very like self-aware tweet where he just said, okay, you're probably right. But they were taking lessons from previous roles. And he, I think, had more of the context of like what makes Morning Brew unique. And so he was like, I should have like fought a little harder for like my vision and like partnered a little more effectively. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at is like, I think the best managers don't lose sight that like you're the manager for a reason. You're probably also very talented. You were promoted for a reason. And like, you don't want to give that up. I think you want to stay in the game. You want to be a player coach, and like, you're there for a reason. Just because you hired someone to do something doesn't mean they're always right.
Right.
And I don't know. I have always responded to managers that feel like they're still getting their hands dirty. They're in the weeds. They're critiquing me. They're providing feedback, because I've always read that as like they care and they're smarter and probably smarter than me, and I can learn a lot from them. So my counterpoint to like they're micromanaging me is also everyone should do a little self-reflection. Are you actually good at like taking critiques? Are you good at receiving feedback? Because it's so easy to be like, my manager sucks, they micromanage. But sometimes it's like, it might be great feedback and you're missing out because you're just unable to hear, criticism of your work. So I wanted to present that to you.
This is the one part where I do think that founder mode and that like phrase, which again, I think is so dumb. And I stand by the fact that I think
We're going
it's dumb,
founder mode.
even though Austin likes it. I don't care. I think it's different than, it's not just a rebrand of micromanagement, specifically because the popular advice for founders has been to step back.
Yeah.
And to be like one of those like non-present managers.
Yeah.
So this just feels like a correction from that, not necessarily saying founders should be micromanagers, but saying founders should be managers, and it's okay to have opinions.
Yeah.
If you're running a company, it's okay to say, I want to do this and I think I know best, even if you've hired and delegated many tasks to very qualified executives. So I think instead of saying founder mode is a rebrand of micromanagement, it just feels like founder mode is a rebrand of how founders should manage.
Yeah, it's like being a great manager, which sometimes might feel a little like you're still too much in the weeds or you have opinions, but I think that is good as long as it doesn't approach this like micromanagement territory that we talked about, where you're actually just doing duplicative work.
Right.
Everyone is miserable. You're not moving the business forward.
You're not trusting the person to do their job and have their expertise.
Exactly.
But if you're not a founder, then don't do founder mode. Just do your job. Be normal, please.
No, I would say there's something, I don't know. To me, I responded very like positively to this, and I get it's a little played out, and I get not everyone's a founder, but I think even if you're not a founder, the idea of founder mode is like ownership of your work and caring about like the final product, and like this podcast, for example. Like, I think we have a very close team, and we're talking about what type of content we're going to do and all of this stuff. And maybe talent's supposed to be like, you just show up and talk or something like that.
That's what we do. No,
You just show up and yap. But like, I care about the final product. And so I kind of want to know everything that's going on, and I don't want to like overstep, and I don't want to like tell people that I know more when they actually do know more. But I don't know. I just feel like caring is cool. And if you like show that you care about the final product, I think people are willing to give you a lot of grace of like being micromanaging. If it just seems like you're doing it to do it, it's very, very annoying.
Yeah.
I just said caring is cool, and Kaila like rolled her eyes to like the back of her head around again, and then back of her head again.
I immediately tried to control that reaction.
Sorry, I was getting fired up.
It was a little nerdy and dorky and embarrassing for you, but that's okay. That's fine. No, I mean, of course, I think we're not advocating to not care about the final product, and we're not advocating to like back up and be in like a non-present manager,
aloof or something like that.
That's not cool either. It's just like, I think when you think that you know best over another person, specifically in this case, one that you manage, to the point of them not being able to do their work and like grow in their career, that's when founder mode or whatever, or like micromanagement becomes a real problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, looks like we both went founder mode on this episode.
That's a full lie.
We crushed it.
We did crush it.
Very fun conversation. If you have thoughts on founder mode, shoot us an email per my last email at morningbrew.com. We actually read every email. It's not even a lie.
And I think we respond to almost every email.
We do respond to almost every email.
Unless it's mean.
If you've emailed us and we didn't respond, I apologize. Just email us again. But let's roll the credits.
Let's do it.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Ogu.
Raymond Liu is a Morning Brew Daily producer.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Go founder mode, y'all.
Okay, do you want to explain why you think
that's the whole point?
Have a micromanager.
Now people want to listen, and I am going to explain. I just proved my thesis right. This works. You're interested now.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I'm doing the podcast.
Wait, no, we were supposed to pause for a second.
We did pause for a second.
Oh. Oh, I didn't.